So the core idea we're digging into today is this kind of wild concept that all the video you watch, it's basically a lie.
It is, yeah, a beautiful lie, but a lie nonetheless. It's not actual movement.
Right. It's just a stack of still pictures, isn't it? Played so fast that your brain just fills in the gaps.
Exactly. And the speed they play those pictures, that's everything. That's frame rate, FPS.
And what our sources get into, which I find fascinating, is that these speeds aren't random. They're not just, picked out of a hat.
Not at all. There are very specific reasons for them, rooted in history, economics, and even the wiring in your house.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's get into the big three standards. First up, the king, 24 frames per second.
The cinematic standard.
If you are watching a movie, a big narrative TV show, this is what you're seeing. It's the speed of storytelling.
And it has that specific feel, doesn't it? It's a bit dreamy. It doesn't feel like you're looking out a window.
So it feels like a story.
Yes. And the reason for it, historically, was not artistic. It was all about the budget. 100 years ago, film was expensive. 24 frames per second was like the absolute slowest they could run the film and have it still look smooth.
And it had to sync with the audio, right?
That was the other crucial part. It was the cheapest speed that worked. But now, after a century, we're trained. Our brains associate that specific look with cinema.
So it's just a beautiful accident that we've all gotten used to.
A very powerful accident. If you tried to shoot a blockbuster at a higher frame rate, people would probably hate it. It would feel too real.
Okay, so if 24 is the beautiful lie, what's next?
Well, then you have the standard that tries to convince you it's the absolute truth. 30 frames per second.
The broadcast standard. This is news, live sports.
Soap operas, reality TV, it feels immediate. It feels live.
And this one has nothing to do with art or storytelling. This is pure infrastructure.
It's all about the American power grid, weirdly enough. The alternating current in our wall sockets runs at 60 hertz.
Wait, you're telling me the electricity coming out of the wall dictated the entire look of television?
Pretty much, yeah. Early TV systems had to sync with that 60 hertz frequency to avoid this horrible visual flicker on screen.
Wow.
So that led to the NTSC standard, which was basically 60 half frames or fields per second. Put them together and you get that 30 FPS look.
So the feeling of immediacy you get from watching the news is fundamentally tied to electrical engineering.
That's it. It's an incredible link between technology and perception.
Which brings us to the last one, 60 FPS. This is the one that kind of breaks all the rules we just set up.
It does. It looks hyper-real, incredibly smooth.
Because it's just more information, right? Twice as much as 30 FPS.
Exactly. If you think of motion as connecting the dots, 24 FPS gives you 24 dots a second. 60 gives you 60. The picture's just fuller. It's great for video games or sports where you need that clarity.
But here's the thing our sources pointed out that I found really interesting. In filmmaking, you almost never watch something at 60 FPS.
No, you don't. It's a tool. It's the ultimate slow motion trick.
Explain that.
So you shoot your footage, maybe some B-roll of, rain falling or someone running at 60 frames per second. But then in the edit, you play it back on a 24 frames per second timeline.
Ah, so you're stretching it out.
You're stretching time itself.
Yeah.
The math is simple but cool. 1 second of real life that you captured becomes 2.5 seconds of super smooth cinematic screen time.
So to just sort of recap what we've unpacked here, we have a kind of language.
A visual language, yeah.
24 FPS is story. It's constructed. It's cinema.
Right. Then 30 FPS is reality. It's the news. It's what's happening right now.
And 60 FPS and higher.
Nah.
That's our special tool. It's for slow motion or for hyperreal clarity in things like sports.
You got it. And I think the final provocative thought to leave you with is right there.
Go on.
Every time you switch from a movie to the news, you are moving between a standard designed for, let's say, efficient fantasy.
24 frames.
And one designed for immediate, grid-constrained reality. 30 frames. And your brain knows the difference, even if you don't consciously think about it. It's getting these subtle cues about whether what you're watching is supposed to be true or constructed.
Okay, so let's get right into it. We're going to unpack this one crucial little secret, the 180-degree shutter rule. I think this is probably the single thing that separates video that looks like a home movie from, something that feels truly cinematic.
Oh, absolutely. It's the most common amateur mistake I see.
I remember my first time shooting sports highlights. I cranked the shutter speed way up to freeze the action.
Yeah.
And well, it looked like bad stop motion. That's the problem.
That is the exact problem.
Yeah.
We call that look staccato or jittery. People coming from still photography think freeze the action, but that creates this really jarring motion.
Because in video, you don't actually want to freeze it.
No, you absolutely don't.
Yeah.
The goal is the opposite. You need motion blur.
Exactly. Like if I wave my hand in front of my face, I don't see 5 perfectly sharp fingers. I see a blur, a smear.
Right, and that blur is what tricks our brains into seeing smooth, continuous movement between the frames. It blends them together.
So if getting some blur is the goal, why does it have to be a precise mathematical rule? Can't I just, use a slow-ish shutter speed and call it a day?
Well, it has to be precise to mimic how our eyes perceive motion relative to the frame rate. And the rule itself, the 180-degree rule, it mandates that your shutter speed must be exactly double your frame rate.
Double. So it's a non-negotiable ratio.
It is a mandatory ratio.
Okay, so for all of us shooting in that, classic cinematic 24 frames per second.
Then your shutter speed has to be 148th of a second. Now, most cameras don't have that exact setting, so you just use the closest one.
Which is 150th.
Exactly, 150th. And if you're shooting at 30 frames per second for, say, broadcast, then you lock your shutter to 160th. Simple as that.
I have to admit, I always thought the name 180 degree was some super technical thing about field of view.
Yeah, a lot of people do. But the real origin is actually from the old film days. It's really cool.
Oh, from physical film cameras.
Yep. The shutter wasn't an electronic sensor. It was a physical spinning disc inside the camera, a circle. And to let light hit the film for exactly half the time.
The double ratio.
The double ratio, they just cut the disc in half. A half circle is 180 degrees.
Wow, so it's literally a physical half-circle shutter. That's fascinating.
It's a physical representation of that perfect 2x formula.
Okay, but applying this to modern cameras brings up a huge practical problem, especially for anyone shooting outdoors.
The biggest one.
If I lock my shutter speed to 150th on a bright, sunny day, my image is it's going to be completely white, totally blown out.
And that is the trap.
Yeah.
That is where everyone panics and they break the rule. They crank the shutter speed up to, 11,000th to fix the exposure.
And instantly destroy that cinematic look.
Instantly. You can't change the shutter speed. The rule is sacred.
So if I can't change the shutter, I have to change the amount of light that's actually getting to the sensor.
You got it. Which brings us to the most essential tool for a videographer.
Neutral density filters.
Yeah.
ND filters.
ND filters. They're completely non-negotiable. They're basically sunglasses for your camera's lens.
Right. They just darken the image without changing the colors or anything.
Exactly. They just act like a dimmer switch for the sun, letting you keep that perfect 150th shutter speed locked in, even at high noon.
So you get total control back. You're not forced to choose between proper exposure and smooth motion.
You both.
Okay, so let's give everyone a final checklist. The 3 things they have to walk away with from this deep dive.
For sure. Number 1 is the formula. Shutter speed equals your frame rate times 2. Lock that in.
Got it.
Second is the look. You are chasing that smooth, buttery motion blur, not the jittery mess.
And third?
The tool. You simply must own a good set of ND filters if you're ever going to shoot outdoors and follow the rule.
This is the shortcut, really. This knowledge makes your work look professional, instantly.
It really does.
Yeah.
And, to leave you with a final thought to play with, if this 180-degree rule is what creates natural motion, think about what happens when you intentionally break it. What kind of emotional effect could you get by deliberately using a crazy high shutter speed? What kind of story does that jarring, anxious motion suddenly tell when you use it on purpose? That's something for you to go out and explore. All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to cut through all the marketing noise, the buzzwords. We're getting into what actually makes your video look good. 3 core ideas: resolution, codecs, and bitrate.
Yeah, that's the goal. For anyone who shoots video, edits, or even just watches YouTube and wonders why things look the way they do, this is for you. We're going to find the one practical lesson in each of those pillars.
Okay, so let's start with the one everyone thinks they know.
Yeah.
Resolution.
Right.
This is basically just the size of the canvas, right?
Yeah.
So 1080p, or HD, is 1920 pixels across by 1080 down.
A pretty standard size.
Exactly. But then you have 4K UHD, and that jump it's not double. It's 4 times bigger.
Yeah.
3840 by 2060 pixels.
And that massive jump in pixel count is actually where you find the first big pro tip.
Which is shoot in 4K. I hear this all the time.
Always. Even if your final video, the thing you put on YouTube, is only going to be 1080p.
Okay, but hold on. 4K files are huge. They eat up hard drive space. Why go through that hassle if you're just going to shrink it down anyway?
It's all about flexibility. Think of it like editing insurance.
Editing insurance?
Yeah. Because you have 4 times the information, you can crop your shot, you can zoom in on something, and when you export it back down to 1080p, you lose 0 quality.
Ah, so you can essentially get a wide shot and a close-up from a single take.
Exactly. You get 2 shots for the price of 1. It gives you so much room to reframe things later.
Okay, that makes sense. Flexibility. But you just mentioned storage, and that's the big problem, which leads us right to our second pillar, codecs. How do we manage all that data?
And that's precisely what codecs are for, compression and decompression. Without them, your drives would be full in, like, minutes.
So how do they work? I know there are a couple of different philosophies, I guess.
That's a good way to put it. Let's start with the ones most people's cameras use by default. H.264, or its newer cousin, H.265.
Okay. And these make tiny files.
Super tiny, and the way they do it is pretty clever. It's called interframe compression. Your camera takes a full picture, that's a keyframe, and then for the next few seconds, it only records what changes.
So just the moving pixels.
Just the motion. The upside is obviously tiny files, great for streaming. The downside, when you go to edit, your computer has to guess and rebuild all those in-between frames in real time.
Which is why my timeline can get so choppy and slow sometimes.
That's almost always the reason. It's working so hard just to play the video back.
So what's the alternative to that?
That would be the professional codecs, like ProRes or DNxHR. These use intraframe compression.
Intraframe.
Meaning every single frame is a complete whole picture.
Right.
No guessing, no shortcuts.
So the pros and cons are flipped then.
Exactly. Editing is buttery smooth because the computer doesn't have to think, but the file sizes are massive.
So the takeaway is use one for editing, one for delivery.
That's the workflow. Edit with your big, beautiful ProRes files, and when you're all done, export a tiny H.264 file for YouTube.
Okay, simple enough. We've got the canvas size resolution and the type of container, the codec. But what about the quality of what's inside the container?
You're leading perfectly into the third, and I would argue most important concept, bitrate.
The data rate. I love the analogy for this one. Resolution is the size of the box, but bitrate is how much stuff you actually pack into it.
And this is the core lesson. If you remember one thing, it's this. Bitrate is more important than resolution.
Now, see, that just sounds wrong.
Yeah.
How can a smaller 1080p image look better than a giant 4K one?
Because it's all about data density, especially with motion. Let's say you have a 4K video, but the bitrate is really low, maybe 10 megabits per second.
Okay.
Now imagine something with a lot of fast, complex motion happens, like a confetti cannon goes off or there's splashing water.
Right, lots of little details moving everywhere.
The camera doesn't have enough data to describe all that detail cleanly across all those 4K pixels. So what does it do? It creates ugly, blocky artifacts.
Ah, the compression squares. You see them all the time online.
Exactly. Now flip it. Take a standard 1080p video, but give it a really high bitrate, say 50 megabits per second. That image has so much more information packed into each pixel, it will look dramatically sharper and cleaner than the low bitrate 4K. Data density wins.
That's the key, data density. Okay, let's wrap this up with a quick checklist for everyone listening. The actionable rules.
Let's do it.
1. Shoot in 4K, even if you deliver in 1080p. That buys you flexibility to reframe and zoom in later.
2. Use the right tool for the job. Edit with a high-quality codec like ProRes for a smooth experience.
And then export with H.264 for delivery. And 3. Prioritize a high bitrate. That's your best defense against those blocky, pixelated artifacts, especially in scenes with a lot of motion.
And if you connect all this to the real world, it explains so much about streaming. It leaves you with a final thought to chew on.
Go.
We've established that data priority bitrate is king. So when you're streaming a movie and your internet connection suddenly dips, the service has to make a choice. It instantly throttles the bitrate. So the question is, why does the image immediately get blocky and chunky before it gets blurry or lower resolution? The answer is right there in what we just talked about. Something to think about.
Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever been on a film set or, seen some raw footage from a proper cinema camera?
Yeah.
And you look at the monitor and something just feels fundamentally wrong. The image is, it's shocking, right? It's all flat, gray, washed out.
Really desaturated.
It looks terrible.
Yeah.
So why on earth is the industry standard to make footage that looks, so bad on purpose?
It really is the great paradox of filmmaking, isn't it? And you're right, it is completely on purpose. What you're seeing is the difference between two ways of recording.
Okay.
There's a standard profile, which is, let's call it linear, and then there's a log profile, logarithmic.
Algorithmic, Betty. Yeah.
The easiest analogy is to think of it like cooking. The standard profile is like a cooked steak. It's done. The contrast, the color, it's all baked in, ready to serve.
You can't really change it much.
Exactly. You try to, you'll just burn it. But the log profile, that's the raw meat.
And our mission in this deep dive is to show you why shooting raw, like this flat, data-heavy state, is the absolute key to having maximum creative control over that final image.
That's it. To get that control, the camera's #1 job is to record the hardest parts of any scene. The absolute darkest shadows and the brightest highlights.
And log helps with that.
Log is how it does it.
Yeah.
It mathematically compresses this huge range of light, what we call the dynamic range, into the file it's recording.
So it's not actually getting rid of the color, it's just squeezing everything in.
Precisely. What's fascinating here is that the gray look is actually a display of preservation.
Okay.
The camera intentionally lifts the deep shadows up, making them look gray, and it pulls the really bright highlights down, also making them gray.
So everything meets in the middle.
Sort of. If you shot that same scene in a standard profile, any part that's pure black is, well, it's black forever. The data is gone, clipped. Same with pure white.
Ah, I see.
Log protects that data. It keeps it safe in those gray areas so that you, in post-production, get to decide exactly how dark that shadow is or how bright that highlight is. You control the light, not the camera.
That makes so much more sense. So now we have this, perfectly preserved footage that looks awful.
Right.
We have to turn that raw data back into something we can actually watch.
Right.
And that's color grading, a 2-step process.
That's right. And step 1 is purely technical. It's called correction. We are just trying to bring the footage back to what looks normal.
Like real life.
Exactly. We add the contrast back. We add the saturation back. The goal here is to conform the image to a global standard called Rec. 709. Think of it as the reference for what normal looks like on any TV.
So correction gets us to reality.
Mm-hmm.
But the second step, that's where the art comes in.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you go beyond reality.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that second step is grading. This is where you apply a look. It's all about manipulation for story. It's the mood. It's making the shadows a little blue-green for a sci-fi feel, or pushing these warm golden tones for a romance. Correction makes it look real. Grading makes it tell a story with color.
And for anyone listening who's actually had to deal with this flat footage, there's a kind of shortcut to get from that raw file to the corrected starting point, right? LUTs.
Yeah. A crucial tool. A lookup table.
LUT.
And don't just think of it as a filter. It's more like a digital translator. It's basically a little file with a bunch of math that tells the editing software, for every pixel with this log value, translate it to this Rec. 709 value.
So it does the correction for you.
It gives you a fantastic starting point. It's not the final step. You always tweak it, but it saves hours of work.
So what does this all mean? The big takeaway here seems to be about choice. If you need speed, a quick turnaround, standards is probably fine.
For sure.
But if you want to maximize your data, keep all that beautiful detail in the highlights and shadows, and have complete artistic control over your story, you have to shoot log.
It's non-negotiable for serious work.
And then you have to embrace the art of color grading.
Yeah. And this raises an important question. Since grading is all about using color to tell a story or make you feel something, cold colors for isolation, warm for intimacy, you now know this is a deliberate choice.
They're not an accident.
Never.
Yeah.
So the next time you're watching a movie or a show, really look at the color. What story is that specific color palette trying to tell you? What emotions are being baked into the image? Because it is always, always on purpose.
Today, we're jumping right into the core of cinematic language, and we're starting with probably the most underrated piece of gear on set, the tripod.
The unsung hero, for sure.
Right. It's the one thing that really dictates your emotional connection to what you're seeing, even before the camera starts to move at all.
Exactly. The tripod is pure authority. When a director decides to lock the camera off completely, a truly locked off shot, that's a command.
A command to the audience.
It's a command to you, yeah. It's saying, stop, look at this, study this frame. The camera becomes this this objective observer. And that stability, that's the foundation for everything that comes next.
Okay, so let's get into that.
Yeah.
How do we take that stability and turn it into movement that actually tells a story? I guess our mission here is to really master those fundamental movements, the pan and the tilt.
But before we even get to the storytelling, we have to talk about the tech, the mechanics of it.
Right.
Because we're talking about video, and a cheap photo tripod is just going to completely sabotage the mood you're trying to set.
Wait, why is that? I mean, couldn't you just get a really high-end photographer's ball head or something? Why does it have to be for video?
Because it's all about smoothness. Cinematic movement has to be absolutely fluid. That's why you need a specialized fluid head.
Okay.
These things have little fluid-filled cartridges inside them that dampen all the friction. If you use a normal friction head, you get those tiny, jerky starts and stops.
And that just screams amateur.
It screams accidental.
Yeah.
It tells the audience this wasn't on purpose, and it just shatters that authority you worked so hard to build. You have to get that silky glide.
That makes so much sense. A jerky move says, oops.
Yeah.
But a smooth one says, I'm showing you this for a reason. So let's put that smoothness to work with the pan.
The pan is simple, right? It's just moving the camera left or right on that fixed axis, like turning your head to look around a room without moving your feet. But the motivation, that's everything.
And the motivation usually boils down to one of two things, doesn't it? You're either following a subject or the big reveal.
Yes, the reveal is the powerful one. The camera isn't moving because someone's walking. It's moving because you, the audience, need to see what they're looking at.
Shifts your whole perspective.
It totally reframes reality. You think a character is alone, and then the camera just slowly pans left, and oh, there's someone else there in the shadows. That's narrative gold.
So if the standard pan is this, very calculated reveal, what's its aggressive cousin? The whip pan.
Ah, the whip pan. It's all about sacrificing clarity for energy. It's so fast the image just blurs. It's not about observation at all.
It's just pure chaos.
Pure chaos or energy or confusion. It basically works as a high-octane transition. It disorients you just enough to say, okay, we are jumping somewhere else entirely.
So that covers the horizontal. What about the vertical? The tilt? Just nodding the camera up or down. I find it so interesting how tilting up and tilting down have such opposite emotional weight.
Oh, they absolutely do. When you tilt up, it's almost always to establish scale. You start low, maybe on a character's shoes, and the camera just tilts up and up past their head to reveal this towering skyscraper.
It makes the person seem small.
Yeah.
Powerless.
Exactly. It puts the human in context with their environment, but tilting down.
Tilting down always feels so tense. Like a knot tightening. You see it in thrillers where the camera holds on a character's face and then just slowly tilts down to the gun in their hand.
That's the perfect example. The tilt down is a revelation of outcome. You know they're tense, but the tilt down shows you why. It confirms your worst fear.
So boiling this all down for you, the observer, the main takeaway is pretty clear. Stability is your baseline, your authority. But any movement, pan or tilt, has to be motivated.
It has to be. Every little shift has to serve one purpose. To reveal something important. If it doesn't, you've lost all that cinematic authority.
Which brings us to our checklist. Number 1, tripod stability establishes that objective view. 2, a fluid head is absolutely non-negotiable for that professional smoothness.
And 3, every single pan or tilt must have a clear narrative motivation.
Right.
And here's a final thought for you to chew on. If you now know that a director has to work so hard to make movement feel intentional and smooth, what does it mean when you see a quick, jarring camera shake?
Good question.
Is that choice to abandon stability, to give up that authority? Is it meant to show extreme urgency? Or is it maybe just a lack of resources? Keep an eye out for that next time you're watching a found footage film.
All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to unpack the grammar of cinematic movement. But we're moving past the simple stuff.
Yeah, beyond rotation.
Exactly. Not just, a pan or a tilt where the camera's stuck in one spot. Our mission here is to get into what happens when the camera actually physically moves.
And that physical movement is everything. It's the core difference between just observing a scene and feeling like you are actually stepping into that world.
So to feel like you're entering the world, the camera has to, physically enter it too.
That's it. That's the whole idea.
Okay, so let's start with the foundational move, the one everyone knows, the dolly.
Right.
This is the camera moving physically closer to or further from the subject, pushing forward or pulling back.
And this is where we hit the first and maybe the most important distinction. A dolly is not a zoom.
I was just about to ask that, because optically, if the goal is just getting closer, why not just zoom in? Why go through all the trouble of setting up tracks,
because a zoom just magnifies a flat image. It makes things bigger, but the world stays flat. A dolly, on the other hand, creates something called parallax.
Parallax. I didn't realize until reading our source material that this isn't just a cool effect. It's like the fundamental thing that creates depth.
It's the secret sauce for 3D perception. Think about the example they give. You're dollying in on someone sitting at a table.
Okay, and there's a coffee cup on the table in the foreground.
Right. As you move in, that coffee cup is going to move past the lens much, much faster than the wall in the background.
And that difference in relative speed between the planes. That's it.
That's it. It's a signal to your brain. It says, I am physically moving. I am here.
Which makes its narrative function pretty powerful then.
Hugely powerful. A dolly in is all about increasing intimacy or tension. The camera is basically yelling, pay attention to this.
And a dolly out does the opposite. It reveals context or even abandonment.
Exactly, abandonment. As the camera pulls back, the subject just shrinks. They become tiny relative to the world around them.
They lose their importance in the shot.
Their emotional importance just evaporates. It's a visual way of saying, this person is alone, or simply, the scene is over.
Okay, so if dolly is forward and backward, let's talk about moving laterally. The truck.
The side-to-side move, left to right.
And this is usually to follow a character, right? Like someone walking down the street.
That's the most common motivation, yeah. But the effect is where it gets interesting. When you truck past a foreground object, like a pillar or a tree.
Oh, you get that wipe effect.
You get that wipe. It creates this instant feeling of speed and depth, just like when you're looking out a car window and see lampposts whipping by.
So it's injecting energy into the frame, even if the subject themselves is moving pretty slowly.
Pure visual language. It's dynamic.
Now, making all these moves smooth requires some serious hardware. It's not as simple as just picking up the camera and walking.
Oh, definitely not. It all depends on the scale of the move. For short, really precise moves, maybe just a couple of feet for, like, a product shot. You'd use a little slider.
Just a mini track, basically.
Pretty much. Then you scale up to something like a Dana dolly, which runs on longer, heavy-duty rails for those perfectly straight, long moves.
And then there's the big one, the doorway dolly.
Right, which is less about a perfect straight line and more about flexibility. It's a whole platform on wheels that the operator rides on. It lets you do these complex, curving moves, even on uneven ground where you could never lay track.
So, wrapping this all up, the big takeaway seems to be that physical movement is what changes your relationship with the screen. That parallax effect is what pulls you in.
It absolutely is. And it brings up a way to think about how you watch films.
How so?
Next time a scene really grabs you, don't just notice the acting or the story. Ask yourself, is the camera just rotating, keeping me outside? Or is the crew using the simplest lateral move trucking past a post to engineer that wipe effect? That tiny bit of physics is what makes the visual language come alive.
So let's talk about a classic filmmaking problem. You need a perfectly smooth shot, but, you can't lay down a dolly track.
Right.
You're going up a flight of stairs, or you're running through a crowded market.
We're chasing a car.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to make a choice. And today, for our deep dive, we're looking at that choice. The mechanical Steadicam versus the modern robotic gimbal.
And what's so fascinating is that it's not just about getting rid of the bumps in the shot.
No,
it's really about choosing a visual language. These two tools create a completely different feeling for you, the audience.
Okay, so let's start with the classic, the Steadicam. This was invented by Garrett Brown way up in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
What was the core idea there? How did he manage to make a camera just float?
It's just this genius mechanical solution. I mean, it's pure physics.
Okay.
The whole system, you have the vest the operator wears, a big spring-loaded arm, and then the sled where the camera sits. It's all built for one thing. Mechanical isolation.
Isolation from the operator.
Exactly. It uses counterweights. It uses tension. So the operator can run, they can take all the bumps, but the camera just stays perfectly level. It floats.
And that's what gives us that really organic look, right? It feels human because a person's there, but it's perfected.
Perfected, yeah.
You think of those legendary shots like the Goodfellas one, going into Copacabana. The camera is literally flying through hallways and downstairs, but it feels like we're following this, almost magical point of view.
Right. Now, contrast that completely with a gimbal. We're moving from mechanical wizardry to, pure electronics.
That feels like a huge shift. So if the Steadicam is working with gravity, using physics to balance everything, How does a gimbal get that same stability?
It's actually fighting gravity.
Absolutely.
It's all motors and gyroscopes. These modern three-axis systems, they're correcting for any unwanted movement on, the pan, the tilt, and the roll axis, all at the same time. And they have these algorithms that are actively battling any little bump or shake. We're talking thousands of times a second.
Wow. That level of precision?
Yeah.
It sounds almost terrifyingly perfect.
That's the word for the look you get. It's robotic perfection. It is flawlessly smooth.
But there's a catch.
There's a huge catch, and this is what the sources really flag as a danger. If the movement is too perfect, it can actually look sterile, lifeless.
Right. It doesn't feel human anymore.
Exactly. It risks feeling like a video game cutscene, or just a random drone shot that has no motivation. It can pull you right out of the story.
Okay, so this is a huge distinction then. It's not just about which tool is smoother.
Not at all.
It's about what you're trying to make the audience feel.
100%. You have two completely different viewing experiences. With stabilization, your Steadicam or gimbal, you get what you could call a God view.
A God view.
Yeah, the camera just floats effortlessly. It makes you, the audience, feel like a ghost in the room, an objective observer. It can be magical or, dreamlike.
But then you take all that away. You go handheld. You feel the operators breathing, their footsteps in the shot.
And everything changes. That's chaos. It's anxiety, it's energy, it's documentary-style realism.
So the lesson is that the motivation has to dictate the tool.
Absolutely. For a beautiful, flowing wedding dance, the gimbal's perfection is what you want. But for a raw, chaotic fight scene, handheld is better. Don't just use stabilization because you can.
So when it all comes down to it, the choice a filmmaker is making is between, what? Mechanical, organic isolation.
Versus motorized, robotic control. Yeah.
And the big takeaway here seems to be the technical perfection, like that flawless float from a gimbal, isn't always the goal.
It's often not the goal. Sometimes you need imperfection to communicate realism, to communicate chaos, which really leaves you with this final thought. Where else in art or technology is a controlled, intentional flaw actually required to make a better, more honest emotional connection?
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are getting into something really foundational to visual storytelling.
We really are. We're looking at the language of movement.
And it all boils down to one sort of golden rule, doesn't it?
It really does. Never, ever move the camera without a reason.
And this isn't just, a stylistic choice. There's a real reason for it. It's what our sources call the amateur trap.
Exactly. An amateur filmmaker thinks constant movement, like, just orbiting a person who's just sitting there, they think it makes things more cinematic.
But it doesn't.
It absolutely doesn't. In fact, it often just makes the audience confused or even a little motion sick. It breaks a fundamental trust.
Okay, let's unpack that psychological failure. So if the camera just starts drifting for no reason while two people are talking,
yeah,
the audience stops listening to the dialogue. Their brain immediately starts asking another question.
Right. It's asking, whose eyes am I looking through? Or, wait, who is watching them?
Is there a stalker in the room?
Exactly that. It creates this low-level anxiety because the movement is unmotivated. You've pulled the viewer completely out of the story.
So if that's the mistake, what are the legitimate reasons? How do we get this right?
Well, the good news is that almost every good camera move falls into one of three pillars. 3 core motivations.
Okay, let's nail those down. What's the first one?
The first one is the most straightforward, character movement.
So the actor does something, and the camera just has to follow.
That's it. It's reactive. The actor stands up, they walk to the window. The camera has to pan or dolly just to keep them in the shot. Simple.
Okay, that makes sense. So what's number 2?
The second pillar is the psychological shift. This is way more intentional. It's about showing an internal state.
You mean what a character is thinking or feeling?
Precisely. So imagine a character has just learned they've been betrayed. The camera might slowly dolly in on their face.
Physically move closer.
Right. On tracks, just slowly creeping in. And that movement mirrors that horrible sinking realization that's closing in on them. It puts us right inside their head.
So it's slow, it's deliberate, which I guess brings us to the third one, the spatial reveal. How's that different?
Well, a spatial reveal is all about geography. It's about using movement to give the audience crucial information about the space itself.
To show them something new.
Exactly. Think of the camera trucking, so moving sideways to the right, for the specific purpose of revealing the killer hiding just behind a door.
So the motivation isn't the character's action, it's the story's need for the audience to see a new piece of the puzzle.
You got it. It's pure geographic storytelling.
But, there's always an exception. We've all seen those huge action movies like a Michael Bay film where the camera's just constantly flying around.
That's a great point, and that's a very conscious trade-off.
A trade-off of what?
It creates this artificial high-octane energy. It feels exciting, sure, but you sacrifice intimacy. You never really get to lock into a single character's point of view because the camera never, ever settles down.
So it keeps you at a distance emotionally.
It does. It prioritizes spectacle over connection.
Which brings this all back to what you, the filmmaker or the viewer, should be looking for. It's this idea of invisible directing.
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal. The best camera moves are the ones you don't even consciously notice.
Because they feel so right. They feel so perfectly timed with the story that they just disappear.
Which means the one question every director has to ask is just,
why am I moving?
Yeah.
If there isn't a good answer, then maybe don't.
Don't. It's really that simple. It's either character, psychology, or space. Anything else is just drifting.
So if the whole point, the absolute pinnacle of this craft, is to make the technique itself invisible, it leaves you with a really interesting question to think about. What other fields out there prize that same kind of invisible perfection, where mastery is measured by how completely the user or the viewer just forgets the technique is even there? Something to consider.
So have you ever watched, say, a really chaotic action scene or maybe a dialogue scene with super fast cuts, and you somehow still know exactly where everyone is? Where the door is, where the hero is. Well, that's not an accident.
No, not at all. It's all about something we call spatial continuity. It's sort of an unspoken promise from the filmmaker to you, the audience, that the world on screen is going to make sense.
An unspoken promise. I like that.
And the main way they keep that promise is with a very old, very important guideline. It's called the 180-degree line rule.
Or the axis of action, right?
Or the axis of action, exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack that. If we're watching, let's say, two people just sitting at a table talking, where is this imaginary axis?
It's just an invisible line drawn right between them, so right through their eye lines. Or if it's a car chase, it's the line of the car's direction.
Okay.
And once you establish that line, the rule is pretty strict. The camera has to stay on one side of it. That 180-degree half circle becomes your whole playground.
And the reason that works, the sort of magic of it, is that if you stay on that one side, the person on the left of the screen will always be looking to the right.
Right. And the person on the right will always be looking left. Their eye lines match up every single time you cut. It seems so simple, but that's everything for your brain. It lets you process what's happening without, getting confused.
But, filmmaking is about breaking rules, too, isn't it? What happens when a director just decides to jump that line?
Well, you get instant confusion, total disorientation.
Ah.
The second you cut to a camera on the other side of that line, the screen direction completely flips.
So the geography just sort of collapses.
It collapses. It's really jarring. All of a sudden, the person who was looking left is now looking right, and you think,
wait, did they swap seats? What just happened?
Exactly. Where's the door now? Just calls you right out of the story because your brain have to stop and solve this little puzzle.
So is there ever a way to do it right? To cross the line without causing that chaos?
There is, but you have to earn it. You have to show the move.
Okay, so you can't just cut across.
You can't just cut, but you can have the camera physically move, dolly or glide across the axis in one continuous shot.
So you're basically redrawing the map for the audience in real time.
Precisely. The movement itself tells the audience, okay, our perspective is changing now. Get ready. It's an earned transition, not just a jarring mistake.
So that's really the big takeaway then. This rule is all about picking a side and just sticking to it so that we, the viewers, never feel lost.
Yeah, it keeps you anchored. It's the invisible grammar that lets you follow every single confrontation without a second thought.
It's fundamental.
It is. And, here's something to think about next time you're watching a movie. Now that you know about this line, start looking for it. But more than that, look for the rare times a great director breaks it on purpose.
So without the camera
without the move. Because when they do that, they're not just making a mistake. They're trying to tell you that the character's world itself, their emotional stability, the reality of the scene has just been shattered. They're using the jump to create a feeling of chaos inside you, not just on the screen. All right, so today we're jumping into a deep dive on visual storytelling, specifically how a camera's distance isn't just, a technical thing. It's an emotional lever.
It absolutely is.
We're going to be dissecting shot sizes and emotional scaling and uncovering this framework that that we call the scale of intimacy.
Yeah, and this is like the ultimate cheat code for understanding the intent behind anything you watch. You don't need a film degree.
Right.
You just need to get why the director put the camera right there. It's this really simple but deliberate link between frame size and the emotion it demands from you.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Let's start wide. The wide shot, sometimes it's called the establishing shot. So you're seeing the character head to toe and their whole environment. What you're getting there is pure context. It's just answering that first question, where are we? It's the world.
Exactly. It orients you. It gives you this kind of safety, this distance. But the critical thing is directors. They abandon that shot almost immediately.
It's impersonal.
Totally. Once they've established the where, the next question is, okay, what's happening now? And that moves us into the standard for dialogue.
So we've got the world. Now we step in closer into what you could call the neutral zone.
Yeah.
The medium shot. Usually what? From the waist up.
Yep, that's the one.
So if the wide shot is about safety and context, what's the medium shot giving us emotionally?
Conversation. It's kind of the invisible shot. I mean, think about it. When you're just standing, talking to someone in real life, this is the distance.
Right, it feels natural.
Because it is. It mirrors that natural interaction, so your brain just processes it as neutral, as information. You're not really emotionally invested yet. You're getting the dialogue.
And this is where it starts to get really interesting, because this is where the camera starts to manipulate us. We cross this line from a neutral chat into, into forced intimacy, the close-up.
Yes, the head and shoulders shot.
And its entire job is pure intimacy.
Yeah.
It forces you to see the tiny details, the twitch of a lip, a single tear. We call it the soul of the scene.
Right. But if that's where the payoff is, why not just start there? Why not stay there?
I was just about to ask that.
Because intimacy is intense. And you can't maintain that kind of intensity for very long without, fatiguing the audience. The close-up is powerful because it's reserved.
For the big moments.
Exactly. It's for that moment of realization or the climax of an argument. The storyteller is pulling you across a threshold, forcing you to feel what the character is feeling right now.
And then there's even one step further, the extreme close-up, the ECU, which is... It's not even intimacy anymore. It feels like an overload.
It is.
We're talking just the eyes, or maybe just the mouth. It's so tight it just excludes everything else.
And that feeling, it shifts completely. It becomes this uncomfortable intensity. It sort of breaks that fourth wall, pulling you right inside the character's head.
You're feeling their panic.
You're vibrating with it. You see this in Sergio Leone's Westerns, famously. That super tight shot on the eyes, the sweat. Just before the draw. It's a reminder you're not just watching a scene, you're watching a psychological break.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner? I mean, you're watching a very predictable, very deliberate emotional manipulation.
That's it.
A typical scene flows from wide to medium, and then it pushes into that close-up.
Yeah.
From impersonal orientation to information, and then bam, the emotional hit.
And if you connect this to the bigger picture, knowing this sequence-wide, medium, close-up, it gives you an immediate checklist for analyzing any scene. It's context, then dialogue, then emotion. It's a transparent way to see the manipulative intent behind every single shot.
So here's a final thought for you to consider. Knowing the power of that close-up. What happens when a storyteller deliberately avoids it? When they keep a really critical scene stuck entirely in that neutral conversational medium shot, what realization or what feeling might they be denying you?
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're cracking the geometry of influence. We want to give you the filmmaker's shortcut, the visual toolkit they use to signal power dynamics in any scene, so you can spot it in everything you watch.
Exactly. It's a kind of visual shorthand. And it works because it taps into these really deep-seated psychological triggers.
So we're moving past just basic photography here.
Oh, way past it. We're getting straight into the meaning behind the camera angle and how it guides your perception without you even realizing it.
Okay, so let's start with the big one, the visual contrast that really dictates who's on top. The two main vertical angles. Let's unpack the low angle first.
Right. So the low angle. The camera is placed literally below the subject's eye level. It forces you, the viewer, to physically look up at them.
Which makes them feel bigger, more powerful.
Absolutely. They become dominant, overwhelming, maybe even heroic, but definitely powerful.
Like Darth Vader.
That's the classic example. He's so often shot that way, and it just makes him seem impossibly imposing.
That makes perfect sense. But hang on, is it always about dominance? I mean, if you shoot a small child from a low angle, does that really make them look dangerous?
That's a great point about context. But the psychological feeling is still elevation. You were visually submitting to that subject.
Yeah.
You're still looking up, granting them a certain status or importance, even if you don't feel threatened.
Okay. So let's look at the flip side then. The high angle.
When the camera is placed above eye level, looking down, that dynamic instantly reverses.
It communicates weakness.
Weakness, smallness, or submission, yeah. The subject is literally beneath the camera's gaze. You see that when characters are defeated. Think about Loki in the Avengers after the Hulk smashes him.
Right, when he's just lying in that crater on the floor.
Exactly. That high angle makes him look absolutely pathetic, completely stripped of all his power.
So, just to establish the baseline here.
Eye level.
Eye level. Neutral and equal.
That's our baseline. It's what we expect from a normal, straightforward conversation.
Now, let's shift gears from vertical power to something more fascinating. I'm talking about the Dutch angle, the canted angle.
Ah, yes.
It's not about looking up or down, it's about tilting the camera sideways. What message does that send? It's so unsettling.
What's fascinating here is that the Dutch angle isn't about power at all. It's about the state of their world. It's about stability.
Or the lack of it.
Precisely. Tilting the camera so the horizon is not level just means something is fundamentally wrong.
Our brains hate that.
They do. It instantly signals chaos, maybe madness, disorientation.
Yeah.
It's visual shorthand for instability.
And it's so effective because you get this physical sense of unease. The old Batman TV show used it all the time for the villains.
To show immediate moral deviance.
And modern thrillers, like the Mission Impossible films, use it to instantly tell you this is a high-tension spy scene where anything can happen.
So if we pull this all together, we've really just extracted 4 core psychological signals from simple geometry.
Okay, let's recap them.
Eye level is neutral. Low angle is dominance. High angle is weakness.
And the Dutch angle is chaos, instability. So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Well, now that you know the toolkit, every piece of video, media, a blockbuster movie, a political speech, it's going to reveal its deeper intentions to you.
You really can't unsee the calculated choice behind the frame once you know what to look for.
Which raises a really important question, doesn't it?
It does. When you're watching politicians or corporate figures talk about, well, anything controversial, knowing that a low angle visually gives them strength and a high angle shows vulnerability. How often are nonfiction sources subtly building a narrative of winners and losers just with camera position?
Something to think about the next time you're watching any screen.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are slipping behind the curtain. We're going to talk about the language of visual storytelling.
Exactly. The core terminology that, every single editor, every successful YouTuber absolutely relies on.
And our mission for this deep dive is to really distinguish between the main stuff, the primary material, and all that other footage that makes a story compelling.
Yeah, we're talking about A-roll and B-roll, but more importantly, we're going to get into the ratio between them, the thing that really dictates whether you keep watching or, just click away.
Okay, so let's start with the foundation. The A-roll.
Yeah.
What is it exactly?
A-roll is, it's the raw truth of the piece. It's the primary footage. So the interview, the host looking right down the lens at you, or the main action of a scene.
The narrative spine.
It is. It's the narrative spine. The A-roll delivers all the core audio, the key information. I mean, if you just listen to the audio, the A-roll should tell you the whole story.
But there's a big problem there, isn't there?
Ugh, a huge problem. The reality is that watching a talking head for more than maybe 30 seconds, it gets boring. It tests your patience.
I get that.
Yeah.
So if B-roll is so important for keeping people engaged, why even bother with A-roll? Yeah. Why not just use D-roll for everything if the talking head is, a risk?
Well, because the A-roll gives you authenticity. It creates that connection.
The human element.
The human element, exactly. B-roll is the visual commentary on top of that. It's essential, but it can't carry the emotional weight alone. It's supplemental footage that an editor lays over the A-roll audio. You hear the story, but you see the illustration.
So it's the classic show, don't tell principle.
Statistically executed, yeah.
So the A-roll audio might say, yesterday I learned how to roast my own coffee beans, and then boom, the B-roll kicks in.
Yeah.
You see a close-up of the beans crackling, maybe steam rising from the cup.
Right. That's its first job. Visual context. It keeps you interested. But here's the real aha moment, the thing we promised you. B-roll isn't just flair.
It's a tool.
It is the ultimate Band-Aid.
Okay, let's nail the technical side of this because this is so important. Let's say the speaker in the A-roll stumbles over a word.
Or just pauses for too long.
Right. And the editor needs to cut that out. If they just slice the video, the speaker's head suddenly snaps to a new position.
And that's a jump cut. It's jarring. Your brain immediately knows something is wrong, that it's been edited. It just pulls you right out of the flow.
So to hide that jump, the editor takes that audio cut and just covers the video part completely with B-roll. Maybe a shot of the speaker's hands or a graphic.
That's the magic trick. The audio edit is seamless, but your eyes are busy looking at something else. The mistake just, poof, it vanishes. B-roll is strategically used to hide every single stutter, every awkward pause.
Which brings us to the structure, this weave you mentioned.
Yes. A really good video isn't just one thing. It's a carefully calibrated weave of the two.
So the flow should be, you start with A-roll.
You start with A-roll. You connect with the person. You deliver the hook.
Then you cut to B-roll to illustrate what they're saying.
Or to hide a cut you just made. And then you cut back to the A-roll.
To reestablish that connection.
And deliver the next piece of information. It's a rhythm.
So the quick takeaway here, A-roll is the talking, the audio spine, the credibility.
And B-roll is the illustration, the visual interest, and, most importantly, the strategic tool to make the main story look flawless.
What's really hitting me is just how intentional this all is. The next time you watch a video that feels perfectly smooth, you realize the editor is using that beautiful B-roll not just to add flavor, but maybe to fix dozens of tiny mistakes.
And that leaves a really interesting question for you to think about. If one of B-roll's main jobs is to hide the imperfections in the main footage, how often are we ever really watching an uncut, unmanipulated story?
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're jumping into something absolutely essential for video creators. Microphones.
And our mission today is pretty simple. We want to make sure the audio you capture never, ever gets called thin and distant again.
Right. And to do that, we have to start with the one single most important rule.
The golden rule of audio. And it's this. Get the microphone as close to the mouth as you possibly can.
That's it. I mean, if you walk away with nothing else, remember that.
And here's why it matters so much. A cheap mic, say a $50 lav mic 6 inches from someone's mouth.
Yeah.
It's going to sound infinitely better than a $5,000 studio mic that's 6 feet away.
And we're not talking a subtle difference here. It's a huge, shocking difference. Distance is your number one enemy.
Exactly. And that rule is precisely why we can just, immediately dismiss the built-in mic on your camera.
Absolutely. It's a non-starter.
It's maybe 10 feet away from your subject. It fails the proximity test right out of the gate.
And it picks up everything you don't want. The lens motor, the operator breathing, just awful thin sound.
Which forces professionals into dedicated external solutions.
So that takes us to the big one, the first professional tool. The shotgun microphone.
The sniper rifle of audio.
You've seen it. It's that long, narrow, tube-shaped mic on a film set.
And its power comes from its pickup pattern, which is called hypercardioid. It's extremely directional.
So I always think of it like a flashlight.
That's a perfect analogy.
It only sees or, hears what you pointed directly at.
And it aggressively rejects sound from the sides and the back. It's actually a fascinating bit of physics. That long tube has tiny slots in it.
Right.
Sound from the sides enters those slots out of phase, and it literally cancels itself out before it reaches the diaphragm.
So all that's left is the clean sound from the front.
Exactly. That's why it's the Hollywood standard. You put it on a boom pole just out of the frame, pointed right at the actor's chest.
Okay, so if the shotgun is a precision sniper rifle, why do we even need anything else? Why bother with the little lavalier mic, the lav?
Because it solves a totally different problem. Let's look at the lavalier. It's that tiny mic you clip on a shirt.
Spy mic.
Right. And its pickup pattern is the complete opposite. It's omnidirectional.
So wait, if the shotgun is a flashlight, the lav is a light bulb. It hears everything all around it.
In a full circle.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster. Why would you want that?
It should be a disaster. But this is the aha moment. It works because of that golden rule.
Proximity.
Proximity. It's positioned maybe 4 inches from the throat. So the voice, the signal, is dramatically, exponentially louder than all the background noise.
So the background sound just gets drowned out.
It gets completely overpowered. You've maximized your signal-to-noise ratio. The voice signal is so strong, the noise floor just disappears.
And that explains why you see them everywhere in reality TV and interviews.
Yeah.
The subject can turn their head, they can move around.
And the volume stays perfectly consistent because the mic is attached to them. It defeats movement.
Okay, so let's synthesize this for everyone listening. 2 main types.
Shotgun. It's directional, Best for controlled narrative stuff, movies.
But you need a Bruin operator to aim it.
Right. Then you have the lav. It's omnidirectional. Best for interviews, documentaries, anything with movement where consistency is key.
So when it all comes down to it, getting that rich professional radio voice isn't about spending thousands on gear.
Not at all. It's just about engineering proximity. It's about getting the mic close.
Simple as that.
Which leaves you with a final thought to chew on. If getting close is the ultimate goal, think about this. What invisible techniques must Hollywood boom operators and reality TV sound mixers use when they're forced into a tough spot, like using a directional shotgun in a room with tons of echo, or hiding an omnidirectional lab under clothes that rustle to defeat distance and maintain consistency in those worst-case scenarios? All right, today we're doing a deep dive into something that is so critical but so often overlooked. Audio for video.
It really is. You see people with beautiful cameras, perfect lighting.
And then it just sounds awful. So our mission here is to tackle those invisible enemies of sound based on the material you sent in.
Exactly. And the sources are great because they really strip away the jargon and give you quick, actionable things you can do right away to sound professional.
Okay, so let's start with the first enemy, reverb. We're talking about those, beautiful modern rooms.
Oh, yeah. High ceilings, hardwood floors, lots of glass.
A nightmare for your ears.
It's a total nightmare. And it's really just physics. When you speak, those sound waves shoot out like tiny tennis balls.
And they just bounce off every hard surface.
They bounce instantly. And all those bounces piling on top of each other, that's reverb. It just makes your audio sound muddy.
Like you recorded it in a bathroom.
Precisely.
Huh.
It's completely unintelligible.
So the fix is pretty intuitive, right? Sound dampening.
You just need to catch those tennis balls. You need soft things.
Like blankets, carpets, even a sofa.
Anything that absorbs that sound energy instead of reflecting it.
And this is where we get that great pro tip. If you're stuck in a really echoey room, the best thing you can do is build a pillow fort.
It sounds silly, but it works. You just surround the microphone with pillows or blankets.
You dampen the sound right at the source before it even has a chance to bounce around.
It's a fantastic quick fix. It's all about controlling that immediate environment.
Okay, so let's move outside to the chaos. The next enemy is wind.
Wind.
Now, this isn't just a sound wave. This is physical air hitting the microphone. What is actually happening there?
It's physically destructive to your audio. That little diaphragm inside the mic, it's basically a delicate eardrum.
Right.
And when a gust of wind hits it, it creates this huge pressure change.
Yeah.
That's what gives you that horrible low-frequency rumble.
And it just obliterates the dialogue.
Completely.
So what about those little foam windscreens that come with most mics? Do they do anything?
Almost nothing. I mean, not outside.
Really?
They're okay for like an indoor air conditioning vent. But the foam is just too porous. It doesn't break up the real turbulence of wind.
So that's the aha moment. You need the dead cat.
The windjammer, that furry cover.
Right.
Its only job is to break up that wind into smaller, gentler currents before it can hit the microphone element. The rule is simple.
If you're shooting outside.
You never go out without one. Never.
Okay. On to our final and maybe most subtle enemy. The noise floor.
That constant hum in every room.
The refrigerator, the lights, traffic outside. But here's the question. Can't I just, use a noise reduction tool in my editing software later?
That's what everyone thinks. But the software, as smart as it is, it needs a reference.
A reference of what?
It needs a clean audio fingerprint of that specific room's noise. And that's why you have to record 30 seconds of room tone.
So just 30 seconds of silence?
Well, clean silence. You're capturing the room's unique hum. Your editor uses that sample to perfectly subtract the noise from the dialogue tracks.
I see. So without that room tone, the editor is just guessing, and you end up with these weird, jarring patches of total silence.
Exactly. It sounds completely unnatural.
Okay, so let's recap the checklist here. Hard surfaces.
Bring in the blankets. Soft things.
Wind outside.
You need a dead cat. No excuses.
And before you leave any location.
Always record 30 seconds of room tone.
It seems like the big takeaway then is that professional audio isn't really about having the most expensive microphone.
Not at all. It's about controlling the environment around that microphone.
Yeah.
You have to actively go out and capture the silence to make sure your dialogue sounds clean.
So now you know what to listen for, and it makes you wonder, what other acoustic invisible enemies are hiding in the places we film? Go forth and conquer the noise floor. Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're going to get into something that always seems a little strange in modern filmmaking. You've got these amazing 8K digital cameras, state-of-the-art tech, but the pros, they're still recording their sound on a totally separate device. Why?
That is the core question, isn't it? Our mission for this deep dive is to get into the nuts and bolts of that technique. It's called dual system sound. And the why of it all, it really just comes down to quality and, well, physics. The camera's main job is the image.
Right.
And that means it's full of things that are just terrible for audio, electromagnetic interference, not enough space for proper preamps.
So when we say the audio quality is just better on the external recorder, what are we really talking about? What are the camera's limitations physically?
I mean, it really boils down to dedicated resources. Professional microphone sends out a very, very low voltage signal. That signal needs a super clean preamplifier to boost it without adding hiss or noise.
Okay, the noise floor.
Exactly. And these dedicated recorders, like a sound devices mixer, they have these huge, pristine preamps. They record at a higher bit depth, maybe 24-bit, versus the camera's 16-bit. It just gives the sound mixer so much more control, so much more dynamic range to work with. Things a camera body just can't physically house.
That makes perfect sense. The camera is a computer for the image, and the recorder is a computer for the sound. But that creates the big problem. You now have two separate files, a video file and an audio file, and they have absolutely no connection to each other. How does an editor possibly sync them up perfectly?
And that brings us to probably one of the most iconic images in all of filmmaking.
The clapperboard.
The slate, yeah.
Yeah.
It creates this one perfect, unmistakable moment in time for the editor. One visual event and one audio event.
Okay, so walk us through that. What are the two specific things an editor is looking for?
Okay, so on the video file, they scrub through to find the one single frame where those two sticks physically hit each other, the visual cue. Then they look at the separate audio file, the WAV file, and they look at the waveform. And they're looking for this huge, sharp spike, the Curie LACK.
The audio cue.
The audio cue. They just line up that visual touch with that sound spike and boom! Everything's in sync. The lips match the voice. It's a foolproof mechanical guarantee.
And this is where it gets really practical for you, the listener. If you're shooting something yourself with an external mic, but you don't have a professional slate, there's a sort of DIY version, right? The poor man's slate.
Yes, exactly. If you're shooting on your own, just before the take, hold your hands up in the frame and give one single loud clap. You're doing the exact same thing, creating a clear visual moment, your hands touching, and a clear audio spike for the editor to lock onto.
It's so simple, but what about all the modern software? I mean, programs like Premiere or DaVinci Resolve, they can auto-sync, right? They can just listen to the files and match them up. So why still use a physical slate?
That's a great question. The software is smart, but it's not magic. It works by listening to the camera's own built-in microphone audio. We call that the scratch audio. It sounds terrible.
Awful, yeah.
But it has the same basic shape as the good audio from the external recorder. The software analyzes the waveforms from both files and tries to find a match.
So it's pattern recognition, essentially.
Precisely. But if there's a lot of background noise or maybe the dialogue is really quiet, the algorithm can get confused. A loud, intentional clap or a slate that creates a signal so sharp and so loud that the software finds it instantly. It's like a giant signpost. It makes the auto sync, I'd say, 100% more reliable.
So to wrap this all up for you at home, dual system sound is for getting that high-end professional audio. And the slate, or even just a hand clap, is that critical insurance policy to guarantee a perfect sync in the edit.
And if we pull back, the really fascinating thing is this. We're in this age of AI and machine learning and just unbelievable digital power. Yet this entire complex professional workflow still hinges on one simple, physical, and very loud noise to make it all work perfectly.
It's the highest of high-tech systems, and it's built on the most basic low-tech guarantee. Something to chew on next time you see that black and white board. That's all for this deep dive.